will start with a few questions for Vassil, because obviously diligent people put down a few questions right as you were speaking. One of those is, what are the 5 core values of LinkedIn? Because I think not all of us really got them. What are exactly the 5 core values that you were talking about?
Okay. As I mentioned during my talk, these values were defined in very early on, like 6 years ago, and since then they haven't changed. And these are those show gratitude. This is one of the values, or celebrate wins with your colleagues. Show that you're gratitude, you're thankful for being here, thankful for their achievements. Peer bonus is part of this value. The other one is push innovation. In our world, in a tech world, we have a product. We need to constantly innovate, otherwise we'll be out of business. The next one that we have is be humble. Lead humbly. And lead humbly is important because ego is one of the biggest enemies for successful team. With ego, you cannot create trust. With ego, it's very hard to build a team of open communication. So, lead humbly. The next one is be a doer, because we need to get things done. Again, we're in the tech world, we have tasks. This is quite related to dependability from the Google's research. Be a doer means that you're just doing your stuff, and you're doing them with a good quality and on time. And the last one, so...
That was a good test, take your time. Ottavio, you know it?
No, I said that I counted 5.
No, there weren't 5. So it was be a doer, show gratitude, lead humbly, these are 3. Then push innovations, this is 4.
Celebrate wins.
Sorry?
Celebrate wins.
Show gratitude is one of them.
Celebrate wins.
Skip politics, yeah. I think, thank you. Skip politics is about... It's about...
You do it your way so well, so you forgot about it. It's already natural.
Well, actually, I had a lot of experience, and I can clearly say that there's absolutely no politics at LinkedIn, and that makes the culture and the place here quite amazing. And skip politics is it's again related to this open culture that we have. Politics is about talking different stuff to different people, or talking behind people's backs, or having a different agenda. Well, we don't have this. We have one common goal, to be successful. So we try to make sure that we all follow this goal, and we united, we work as a team. So these are the 5. Skip politics, shows gratitude, be a doer, push innovations, and lead humbly.
Thank you, Vassil. There's one more for you actually, and then we'll give the mic to Cosmina as well. In terms of open feedback, you mentioned that you encourage everybody to speak openly and to share feedback and to go without fear to tell a colleague how they're doing. How do you teach people to be able to do that? Because it sounds great as an idea, and I know in some of the other companies I'm working with, it's great in theory, but sometimes people are lacking the skills or the structure or the words to go find the right approach and speak to their colleagues. So how does the open feedback really work in practice?
Well, my observation with the folks that work here is that we don't really need to teach them. This is something that they come with. But we, of course, do encourage it, because the culture is not something that you just define and it happens. It requires actions. It requires a lot of consistency. So I will answer your question before that, because I mentioned culture. For me, one of the easiest way to define a culture in a company is just to show your people through actions and through beliefs. And culture is really who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote. This is the recipe for how you define the culture. And if you are consistent into doing all these three things, this is how you end up with the culture for your team. So to answer to your question, we do encourage people, like showing them that this peer feedback is part of the process for other colleagues to grow and for them also to grow, and they really appreciate receiving this feedback. And for various organizational reasons, for Q2, for last quarter, we skipped this peer review cycle, and people were quite unhappy about it. Of course, we resume it now in Q3, but we created this culture that people really ask for it and want it, because it helps them. They understand that this is part of putting ego aside. They understand that they're not perfect. They want to know how they fit, how other colleagues are thinking about them, how they can improve. And when you have this mindset, you start seeking for feedback, and the peer feedback is our mechanism for providing this feedback.
And speaking of culture, that's really important. It's great that you can hire people who are already open for feedback, but once it takes time to change patterns, as Cosmina was talking about, changing, unlearning, resetting behaviors that are not working. I was curious to ask you, how did you make this cultural change? Because it's also a cultural change, changing beliefs and patterns and behaviors. Because a lot of people do it through trainings or some campaigns, attending workshops, things like that. But once the consultant leaves that office, people very easily go back to the regular stuff of doing the things, to the old habits, to the unhelpful patterns. So how did you really make this change happen? Did you spend every day with the team, encouraging, getting feedback? How did you make it a reality, basically?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and on that note is actually just to define how I see culture, and this is actually a big part of it. It's a pillar for conscious capitalism. So at the Conscious Venture Lab, we spend a lot of time on culture, right? Purpose, culture, stakeholder orientation, and leadership. So culture actually happens. This is the thing that most leaders are not aware of. It happens. And it happens by itself. And when it happens by itself, it's essentially the behaviors, the language, the words, the narrative that your teams are willing to accept and tolerate from each other. Without the awareness, that is actually what happens, right? So it's not that either we do it or we don't do it and then we don't have culture. It actually is so organic. It will take place and it will happen naturally with where they are, what they do, what they say to each other. And so to change it, you have to first see what it is. And then also, it does require that being present with them for a long time, because of that, the time it takes to rewire the brain, the time it takes for our response to not be automatically reactive and fearful, right? And so in practical terms, it was weekly calls with them, and going through, even though they may not have a crisis or anything to talk about, but just say, okay, how did you show up to this customer meeting? What did you do before and how was it after, right? And how did you write that email? So looking at everything from top down and bottom up, what they do, what they say to each other, and to make them accountable. So the moment you have that agreement from them, hey, these are the patterns, this is what you had and that was the result. Are you happy? No, we're not. And then to change, we have to all do it. And if one of us slips, because it happens, to lovingly realign that person and do it in a way that's not provoking, but to say, hey, I know this is what we've learned, but we have agreed. You remember that day on the 2nd of October 2018? That was day one of many day ones, and we agreed that we will not do that anymore. So it's that, to be present with them and to make them empowered, to notice. Also, ego is a very big mischief maker, right? So it's not to give the ego ammunition to then pick on someone else, but really to have that.
Thank you. No, we can keep it. There are actually more questions for you, so I hope you're ready. One more from the audience. How scalable is your strategy to larger teams and in the businesses that are not that easily connected with a great purpose, apart from being sustainable, for example?
But that's actually a big one, right? Being sustainable. If a business doesn't have a greater purpose, I would say, look, again, because it's always there. Even if you say my purpose is to have the most amazing workplace, where my team can thrive, can we not at least do that? Or my purpose as a company is to have the greatest impact possible for the environment. So it's there. Like, if it is not possible. If you look closely, you will define. And then you have to make it in a way poetic that it actually appeals to the limbic brain, the part of the brain that remembers, right? That remembers, beautiful sunset. That's actually the thing that makes decisions come from, not the processing of I see this and I see that. So when you communicate your purpose, it's not just for the team, it's also for the outside world to really be excited and resonate with that. So if you don't have a purpose, look for it, do the work, it will be there. You will find something that everybody gets behind. But because without that, you have different teams, different skills, different expertise. One company has one true north, right? The company, and then within that, there are different definitions of that purpose. So the legal team might engage in a different way in making the greater purpose happen, if that makes sense. So if you don't have it, look for it. And then break it down, right? Do the work one-to-one. It won't happen if you just work with the teams. You have to go down to the level of, up to the level of every single individual and what they're working with. Because remember from the slides, we have a field. So all my stuff from home, I bring to the work. And if I don't have a way to address that, it will pollute or it will uplift.
The my parts.
Totally, yeah.
Over to you guys. Any questions from the audience?
I have a question for Vassil. You've mentioned that while you didn't have the product, you managed to be entrusted for $1 million. So how that miracle happened? Probably you have been selling your idea, or what was the story behind that? How can you attract the investors in a way that they respond without you having the product? Thank you.
Okay, so one goal that first, when we created Connecto, we had technology, but we didn't have product, and we didn't know how exactly we will apply this technology, what business problems this technology will solve. So what we did there is that we set ourselves a goal that we will spend the first year doing as much pivots as possible to figure out how to apply exactly this technology and where we can sell this technology the best. And for this 1 year, we did multiple things. Like we were initially thinking about applying it at e-commerce, then we were thinking about applying it in transportation, in food delivery. We tested a lot of different areas, and more importantly, we tested who will buy it, who will pay for this technology. What attracted our investors is the approach that we took. Is that they just believe in us. They believe that with the team that we have and this approach that we will test the technology for 1 year and do like 10 different pivots, we'll end up with a particular result. And when we were attracting the second investment of $800,000, we had some hypotheses that our game is in the marketing industry, but we still haven't proved it. And at that time, they just believed that we will prove it soon. And then we signed the documents in August, and by end of the year, just for a few months, we managed to do the product market fit and
maybe we
No,
can
you
use the other microphone.
yeah.
Skip this. Yeah, because
And we proved that with some of our enterprise customers. And the marketing was a nice move for us, because at one point we figured out that with all this new technology that we have, marketing is a great place to be, because marketers usually have budgets to experiment with different things. And we worked together with Viber, with Coca-Cola to experiment with doing different stuff. Like they were able to carve out of their budget for other medias and other channels and to try with us. And that was our hypothesis that we had in summer that we wanted to prove. We were close, but we still haven't proved it. And it's interesting that even then even by the end of the year, we still didn't have the product. We had the product market fit, but we didn't have the product because we're doing things that were not scalable. Just to validate and to understand where we are in this market. And when I said things that are not scalable, instead of creating a product that our customers would use to develop their chatbots and develop their marketing campaigns to chatbots, we were doing custom development for them. We were acting for a certain amount of time like agency, like bot agency. That we did that because we wanted to understand very deeply what are the problems that our product will solve, how our people would use this product before write a single line of code for the product. Of course, when I say acting as agency, we reused a lot of this code later because we created a nice framework. We have a good, a very scalable backend. We just didn't have the front end that would allow non-technical people to create bots. And we released our first version in April 2018, and then the acquisition happened. So from time to time, I'm mentoring startups, and a couple of days ago, I was invited by Founders Institute to talk about product development. And this is one of the advice that I gave startups, that when you're in B2B business, sometimes you don't need to have the product. You don't need to be scalable. Sometimes just solving customer problem in a non-scalable way is the way to go, because you will learn a lot, you will understand, and every single code, production code, it's a debt. It's a debt that will become a technical debt at some point. It costs money. So before doing that, you need to understand. So if you can solve the problem for your customer manually, like create an Excel sheet or something like that, but solve the problem, this is the way to approach it also.
Thank you. We have a question over here.
Yeah, my question is for Cosmina. Thank you. I was wondering, do you believe or have you tried to implement this kind of heart-based culture, the culture of the heart for business, in societies or groups of people which are not there yet as society, as a culture? I mean, your example was from Denmark, and Danish society is one of the most environmentally and, I mean, also in the education system, heart-centered, at least last decades. But I've been trying to implement this at least environmentally conscious behavior in Bulgaria, and even in companies which are where there are supposedly working people which have this awareness, at least understanding, it's very hard to go there. You also mentioned that you needed to let some people go that could not manage with their precondition, emotional stuff maybe. To create this kind of management of company, do you actually need certain level of already developed people to a certain level to make it possible? And how long time otherwise it will take to...
Amazing questions, yes. So the first part of that is, can it work? Yeah, how does it work outside of business, and how might we inspire society to change behaviors? And I think that's a very big question. And just as an approach, I don't think that attacking works as an approach, right? So this is why activism, or we've had activism for hundreds of years, right? And we still have so-called problems, right? So to me, it's more about understanding the context and understanding why people believe what they believe, why they don't even pay attention. That's another thing, right? Because it's just not on their radar to think, hey, I should be more mindful of what I'm eating, for instance, right? Because that is it has a big connection and a big impact, right, on the environment. So it's to see what it is that they're working with, where are they, and the extent to which you can help them fall in love with the solution and fall in love with the planet. And I really think that that's what has to happen. It's not to challenge the ways that we behave currently in society, but actually to make a very compelling case for why the health of the planet is it's an amazing thing, because without it we don't have a home, right? So that's the first part of that, right? It is possible. And on the second question, what do you do with those that are not willing? So this is where the purpose is a very, very important tool, because it becomes a hiring tool to begin with. So if people are not excited and genuinely on fire about your purpose, then they will not go that extra mile. They will not spend, and we see this, right? It's not required, but it's not a 9 to 5 for them, right? They'll be on WhatsApp on a Sunday because they have an idea about something, right? And we don't want to say block it because we don't want you to work, right? This is actually going beyond work-life balance. It's going integrate completely who you are and what you do. And if it's not happening for you at the workplace, and you really want that to happen, find another workplace, or find a way to do it, even on a tiny, like you're saying, don't think about scale to begin with. Think about, can I do it in my own life? Right? Can I be coherent in my own life? And then with my own team, can I create that coherence? Does that make sense? So purpose will help, because if they're not, and if they want to hold on to the negativity, then you as a leader have a choice. Do I want that energy? No, see it that it is an energy. It's just not good, bad, right or wrong. It's an energy, and look at it from that standpoint. And if I don't want it, then we've seen actually examples of people just moving out, or in some cases they had to be let go of, and they're in a place where they're not so challenged because it's hard to change. And if you don't, you have to want it. If you don't want to change, then it will be very painful. Yeah. So, and not to be realistic and just say, okay, my company cannot be for everyone, right? And who is it that it's for, right? So it's and the ones that it's for, it will actually change their lives, and it has. We've seen in this case, right? They're much more mindful parents when they go home. Their spouses are like, wow, what happened? The parent company has been going for 13 years, so it's not a new company. Right? What happened? Why are you so excited about your job? Can I come to events? Can I know, like Christmas party, right? Partners coming to the weddings and things like that, right? So it's going beyond that. I need to keep my personal life personal and my professional life, because that's needing to integrate the whole self. It's this split that's causing a lot of suffering.
Yes, absolutely. And then
That was great. I just wanted to add something on the letting people go. From my perspective, letting people go is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if there is no cultural fit, there is negativism, or there is low performance. There is a study that we can share after the conference, which shows that a single negative person, a single low performer, or a single lack of cultural fit can decrease the performance of the team between 30 or 40%.
Is that with the bad apple?
Yeah, it's with the bad apple. And it may not be intuitive, but we as the leaders need to take actions. When there is a person that is not fitting in the team, we need to let this person go. And if we do that, our team will be grateful. If you are building a culture for high performing, for doers, and there is a person that does not deliver, then obviously this person is not okay. This person is letting the team down. And even if you let this person go, you're also making a favor of this person, especially if this person is not a cultural fit. So it's that's why I'm saying that it is not necessarily a bad thing. You need to do it right.
Thank you both of you guys.